Architects don't invent anything, they transform reality, by Alvaro Siza. In this act of transformation, each architect producing meaningful work finds a way to give order to the assembly of materials and labour in the making of a building. New order describes the need for each of us to construct our own way of making sense of things. Our unit is focused on examining the idea of construction in the making of architecture, in particular how this initial construction takes place in our minds. We have discovered through our brief that creation, construction, and design are as much imaginative pursuits as they are physical tactile. The unit seeks to acknowledge that architects inevitably come to a specific context with a preconceived set of intentions as a result of their lived experiences, memories, and intuition. The architect's highly personal act of imagining changes the real world in which they practice. The process this semester has therefore been centred on the student, their experience, their prior understanding, and their memories. This is the starting point. Remembering a significant window and reconstructing it using our imagination was the key to liberation from intention design decisions. Without the aid of any reference images, we drew these windows as they lived in our imaginations, as imprecise as the nature of memories. Exact details become relevant, but the act of engaging our imaginations to reconstruct this window has become the basis of our unit.
A description of artist Willem de Kooning's woodland studio acted as a starting point for combining our intuitive imaginings with our formal architectural knowledge. Sketching and paper models were used to illustrate these imagined spaces in a concise and quick manner. We did not seek to engage with the reality of de Kooning's studio. Instead, we chose to reflect upon how each individual interpreted the same piece of text in different ways, as influenced by our past spatial experience and histories.
I suggested the prefab building system. It was the prudent barn framing system, with industrial metal trusses. We turned them backwards, put the columns back to back, and to make the butterfly roofs. It had a butterfly roof because he liked the aesthetics. He wanted that soaring quality. The only way is with steel trusses. In his studio, there would be nothing cramped or penurious, no residue of his years of poverty. He was always asking for thicker, double-sized or extra large to create a feeling of the massive together with the light airiness.
This year, we have each read a different work of fiction to guide, inform, and shape our thesis. These novels act as prompts which form the basis of the narrative woven into our proposals. Through different methods and medium, we explore and express these narratives and ideas. Our own history in space and intuition informs how we project these ideas in sketches, tectonic studies, physical models, movie making, and writing. We reflected on the key parts of the space in each of our novels, how it feels, elemental things, if the space is dark, tall, narrow, or vast. We were to think of windows, doors, finer details. We reflected on these spaces and constructed them using found objects in our homes. Our model responses extended from intimate rooms to open city squares, each likely conjectured with a space somewhere we had previously been.
In these series of explorations, we have made decisions that are rooted in our own histories and examine the idea of construction in the creation of architecture. Our theses and their ultimate outcome will tell their own story while still fixed in architectural theory, our chosen book, and our personal histories. Architecture lives in imagination and the experience of those in its proximity. This is not a contradiction. Construction is as much imaginative as it is physical. Whilst the conception of our projects have been developed from fictional worlds and our imaginations, they have become grounded in the necessary realities of culture, climate, and site. Research into the materials and the environmental concerns specific to the aforementioned realities have been interwoven with our own intuitions and constructions to produce varied architectonic manifestos. In some circumstances, this process has produced highly idiosyncratic responses to our specific situations with reference to local vernacular or traditions of craft and building. In others, it has generated broader strategies of how one acts in distinct contexts, be it environmental or typological.
Next semester, we will continue to progress our thesis projects, working in pairs to develop our interests and inclinations. Architecture is a collaborative effort, and our studio output and method of working will continue to reflect that. Some pairs will continue to build on what has already been established in keeping with their books, while others will put the books aside in order to generate richer and more personalized programs. Another route may lead pairs to transplant their proposals into another's narrative. The direction we will each take will be unique, creating opportunities to investigate our individual architectural interests with the support and input of others in the unit.
"Looks like it's made of Playmobil," he said as I began to head back down, clutching the tarpaulin. "Little buildings with bright-coloured roofs. That's what Sokcho reminds me of." I'd never really looked closely at Sokcho. I'd never really thought of it as particularly interesting. I walked over to join Karad. Before us, a jumble of orange and blue corrugated roofs, the burnt-out ruin of a cinema. Further off, the port and the fish market. The second building was round the back of the first one, down a long alleyway, a traditional house on stilts, restored to make the most of its 2 rooms with their heated floors and paper-dividing walls. An internal courtyard with a frozen fountain and a bare chestnut tree. There was no mention of old parks in the guidebooks. People washed up there by chance, when they'd had too much to drink or missed the last bus home.